This is the video notes continuation for 9.1. Right here. In the previous video, we did the launch for lesson 9.1, Connect the Dots, where we did a card sort and we matched scatter plots to their correlation coefficients, and then we identified patterns that we saw. So that's what we did last time. This time we're going to move on to the explore activities. The first explore activity has us use the data in set A from the card sort as our starting point. We're going to use the Desmos graphing calculator. So this is all in Desmos. Okay. And to get the base file that you would need to do task 2, go ahead and go to our Canvas course. Go to Unit 9, all the way at the bottom, and click on the lesson resources for 9.1 Connect the Dots. When you get there, you'll see the base files. And you want to click on the base file for task 2. Okay. It should open up a file that looks like this. And it has all the data for set A already inputted. And it has the directions right here at the bottom for what we need to do with that data. So it says, keeping the same X values, modify the Y values in the above table to obtain a correlation coefficient as close to 0.75 as you can. Record your new values, Y values in your book on task number 2 on page 194. So right now, the correlation coefficient, if you look here on line item 3, right at the bottom where it says little r equals 0.4966, that's the correlation coefficient right now. This correlation coefficient is weak and positive. So it's fairly scattered, but generally an increasing trend. So we want to try to get this to 0.75, and we're just going to do this by doing micro changes to the Y values, like they said. We're not going to make huge changes, and the reason why we're not making huge changes is because we don't want to create outliers. So we're just going to do small changes. Okay. So let's start looking at the values that are far away from the line, from the rest of the data. So this one up here is pretty far away. So where Y is 4.5, I'm going to lower it. So I'll change that to maybe 3. And every time I make a change, I'm going to go and I'm going to check my correlation coefficient. So that helped. It was 0.49. Now it's 0.55. So let's change this other one that's really high, so 0.48. Let's change that one also. Let's just do 3. So we're lowering it. Okay, so that wasn't such a huge help because we were at 0.55, now we're at 0.54. So let's maybe, I wonder if I raise that one a tiny bit, what change that will have. Oh yeah, just a tiny bit. I raised it. 3.2, how about 3.5? Okay, that was pretty good. Now there's some below here that I think I want to raise. So this one down here at 1.7, I think I want to raise it a little bit. So I'm going to raise it maybe to 2. And again, I'm always checking my correlation coefficient because I want it to be 0.75. So I'm just grouping my points more in a straight line. Okay, so 0.60, that's good. So I think that I will raise that a tiny bit more. So instead of 2, I'm going to do 2.5. And I'll check my correlation coefficient, 0.66. Awesome. Okay, this last one where it's 2.3, let's raise that maybe to 2.8. Oh, wow. I'm so close now. 0.7418. How about I do 2.9? Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So there are only a few that I changed. Do you see that I only changed a few? So now I'm going to record in my book my Y values. So I'm going to transfer this information to my book and then write the strategy that I used to modify the correlation coefficient to 0.75, which is more of a strong, positive correlation coefficient. Okay, so I've recorded them on my paper. Now I'm going to go over to my book to, you record it in your book. So I'm going to say this is 1.5, 2.5, 1.9, 2.8, 3.2, 3, 3.7, 2.5, 3.5, 2.7, and 2.9. And these, all I did was line up the points more. What did you have to do with the data to get a greater correlation coefficient? Line up the points more. Okay. Now we're going to move on to task 3. In task 3, we're going to do this again. So we're going to start with data set A. We're going to keep the same x values, but this time we're going to modify the y values to obtain a correlation coefficient as close to 0.25 as you can. So we're going to go back to our Canvas course, right? And in the 9.1 Connect the Dots lesson resources, this time we're going to click on the base file for task 3. So we go to that base file. So I'm going to open task 3, right? And now I'm going to just do what I exactly did the last time. I'm going to adjust the y values, but this time I want it to be 0.25, which is more scattered, right? This is closer to 0. 0 is when everything is completely scattered. So I want more scatter here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on these first few dots, and I'm going to pull some of them up, pull some of them down, so I'm seeing more scatter. Like this one over here right at the beginning, instead of 1, maybe I'm going to make that like 0.5. The second one here, instead of 1.5, maybe I'll make that like, I don't know, let's make it maybe 3. And each time I need to be checking the correlation coefficient. Do you see how much it's dropped? It was at 0.49, now it's at 0.38. So I'm like pulling apart the dots, making them more scattered. I think this third one right here, I also need to raise. So let's change that 2.5 to maybe a 3 as well. Okay, 0.35 is pretty good. Maybe a little bit more than 3. Let's do 3.5. Again, we're increasing the scatter. Oh, that's awesome. Look, 0.31. Okay. So I think maybe the one that I'll do next is this fourth one. I'll change that one maybe to like 1. Let's see what that does. 0.32. Yeah, it's looking really good. So let's do the next one, the fifth one. So I'm going to, I can raise or lower it. That one's like almost right on the line of best fit. So maybe I'll lower that one. What if I lower it to 1? Is that like too extreme? 0.32. No, this is looking good. I want 0.25. Remember that. So let's go ahead and raise the next one. So instead of 3.2, I'm going to do like 3.9. Let's see what that is. 8.31. So I need even more scatter. Let's do where it's 3.7. Let's raise that one maybe to maybe 4.2. 4.2. That is 0.32. Okay, even more scatter I need. I wonder if I should go back to my first ones and scatter those a little bit more. Okay, maybe I'm going to go back to the second one, 3, and I'm going to do like 3.5. I'll raise it even more. Oh, here, that was very helpful. So that brought me to 0.27. Yeah, so I need just to like pull it apart more. So how about 3.8? There we go. Maybe 3.7. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Okay, do you see the correlation coefficient is 0.254? That's pretty good. So I'm going to go to my book now and I'm going to record all the changes that I made. And you should be doing that too. Recording all the changes that you made. And you don't need to do the same changes that I do as long as you are spreading out the data and watching that correlation coefficient get as close to 0.25 as possible. Even if you have different values than me, you'll be good. So what I ended up with was 0.5, 3.7, 3.5, 1, 3.9, 4.5. I'm going to zoom in here so I can write a little bit better. 4.2, 1.7, 4.8, 2.7, and 2.3. There were some Y values that I didn't touch at all, like not at all. But others I did, and I spread them out. So what did you have to do with the data to get a correlation coefficient that's closer to 0? I spread out the data more. Spread out the data more. Okay. All right, let's move on to task 4. To access task 4, again, go to your Canvas course, go to the lesson resources for 9.1 dots, and click on the base file for task 4. This will open in Canvas a new file where instead of adjusting it to the correlation coefficient to 0.75 or 0.25, you'll see in the directions we are changing it to negative 0.5. We have our starting data here. There's been no changes. This is set A. So now we are going to try to get a negative 0.5. Now, in order to get a negative 0.5, we need our trend to be a downward decreasing trend. So right now what's going on, this is no good. I think what I'm going to focus on to kind of get it to go downhill is I'm going to focus on these first few points and I'm going to raise them. I'm going to raise them enough that my whole trend will be downhill. So I'm starting at positive 0.49. So let's raise this 1 here to be kind of higher. Let's do like 5. Again, I'm not doing like crazy numbers like 500. I'm doing just within this, like no higher than 6 for Y, no bigger than 7 for X. Well, we're just changing Y, so no bigger than 6, trying to keep it on the screen, right? So let's do our second one. So that one we also want to raise, so let's do like, I don't know, 4.8. Do you see already the trend is changing? I wonder what the correlation coefficient is now. Negative 0.4165. Okay, that's awesome. So we need negative 0.5. So that tells me now that I've got a negative trend going, I need a little bit more spread, right? I need it spread out a little bit. So I wonder if this one right here, like 3.2, I wonder if I lower that a little bit, if that would help. I'm going to do 2.5. Did that get me what I wanted? Negative 0.41. I need to spread it out a little bit more. I've got my negative decreasing trend, but I want it more spread out. I wonder if the second one up here that I raised so high, I wonder if they're kind of too close to each other. What if I do like 4? What did that do? That was not good. 4 was not good. How about I change that one to 5.5? Ooh, look, negative 0.45. That was actually good. How about negative 5.8? I'm still within my window, right? Okay, I'm getting there. So how about this third one? I just lower a little bit. The third one, what I change that to a 2? Did that help me at all? No, it actually didn't. What if I raised it to like a 3? Oh, there we go. Negative 0.5073. I'm going to stop right there. Do you see I only changed 4 numbers and they were just like micro changes? So that's what you want to do. You don't want huge changes. You're not creating outliers. You just want small changes to influence the correlation coefficient. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm recording my y values in my book, and I'll show that in a moment, but I just want to write it down really fast so that I have a reference and I don't have to go back and forth between screens. So now that was number 4, and we're going to record them. So I changed the first one to 5, second to 5.8, and then 3, 1.9, 2.8, 2.5, 4.5, 3.7, 1.7, 4.8, 2.7, and 2.3. So there were only a few that I really changed, right? I only really changed this first one used to be a 1, this used to be a 1.5, this used to be a 2.5, this one I actually lowered right here, and that was it. The rest stayed the same. So I'm going to say, what was my strategy? My strategy was to raise the first few points to create the decreasing trend. To create a decreasing trend. Okay, so I don't think Notability likes that I'm going in between apps, so I'm actually going to close down Notability just for a moment, and then I'm going to reopen it and hopefully it'll behave better. Okay. So we're going to move on to number 5 now. It says, what aspects of the data does the correlation coefficient appear to describe? And it's describing 2 things. Okay, so we're going to write the 2 things that it's describing. It's describing the direction, and that's increasing or decreasing, which we're actually going to use different words to describe that. We're going to call that negative and positive directions. And it's also describing the strength. Okay, so this direction, we're going to use the words like I said. Direction is negative. That's downhill. That's the decreasing. Or positive. That's uphill, increasing. And then here the strength. This is going to talk about how spread out the dots are. So if they're really lined up, the strength will be strong, right? You'll really be able to see the linear relationship. If they're all spread out, there's a lot of scatter, we're going to call that weak. Okay. All right, we've got one more task to do, and then we'll do our takeaways. So this final task is a real-life example. It says, on the night before the last math test, Shaniqua held a study group at her house. It was a fun night. They ate lots of pizza, did math, and laughed a lot. Shaniqua scored better on her test than usual and thought it might be related to the pizza. She collected the following data from her friends in the study group. So we have this data. We're going to create a scatter plot. So we'll go to the base file in Canvas, and that'll take us to Desmos, where we'll create our scatter plot. And we'll record our scatter plot and correlation coefficient here, and then make a recommendation. So you should be going to Canvas right now. If you need to pause the video, feel free to do so. Go to the 9.1 Connect the Dots under Lesson Resources, and then choose the Task 6 Desmos link. Okay, and that will take you to Desmos, and your screen should look at this. All right. You'll notice that the data is not in the table, but it's a really fast job to put it in. So look at your book and then add the data to the table. So number of pizza slices eaten, that's X. So we're going to go 2, 6, 1, 4, 3, 5. And then the Y is the percent increase in their test scores. So 5, 9, 4, 7, 6, 8. Okay, so this is the scatter plot that we're getting, which is just kind of crazy, right? It's all lined up perfectly. It's a perfect linear relationship. And you'll see down here that R is 1. So let's record that. Go here, our book, and we'll draw a little scatter plot with the dots all lined up, and R equals 1. Based on this data, would you recommend eating pizza on the night before a test to increase scores? So if you ever get a correlation coefficient of 1 or -1, it's indicating a strong correlation, right? That the items that are being compared are very related to one another. But you always need to be suspicious, right? Statistics is all about interpreting the data. And when we interpret the data, we need to have common sense. Is the number of pizza slices eaten really connected to their percent increase in test scores? Or could there be something else happening? So I'm reading back through the paragraph, and I kind of see two things that are happening. It was a study group, and they did math. So even though they did eat pizza, I don't think that was the factor that helped increase their test scores. So I'm going to say, no, I don't recommend eating pizza on the night before. Like, it didn't hurt, but it wasn't what helped their test scores. I would say, no, even though R equals 1, the fact that they studied math probably had a bigger impact, right? Probably had a bigger impact than eating pizza. All right. Let's go ahead and go on to our takeaways. So in our takeaways, we're going to summarize what we've learned about scatter plots and the correlation coefficient in a table. So right here is our takeaway table. It says the correlation coefficient tells us the strength of the linear relationship between two variables, but not just the strength, it also tells us the direction, right? And the direction. So we are going to go down this list here and talk about what it means for different type of correlation coefficients and what their graphs look like. And rather than have like what it means here in this middle column, I'm going to actually change this so it just says description. So this is how we would describe that correlation coefficient which matches the following graph. All right, here's our first one. What if R is 0? What's the description? The description would be no linear relationship. And the graph would look like this. It would be a scatter plot with dots all over the place with no trend, neither increasing nor decreasing. What if the correlation coefficient is between 0 and 0.7? We would call that a weak positive situation. And the graph would look like this. There would be a decent amount of scatter, but it would be generally going uphill. Okay, so show a decent amount of scatter, then generally increasing. What if the correlation coefficient is between 0.7 and 1? We would call that a strong positive correlation. And that graph would look a little bit more lined up than the previous one. There would still be some scatter, but it's strong positive. All right, what if the correlation coefficient is between negative 0.7 and 0? We would call that weak negative. And the graph for that one would have a downward decreasing trend, but the dots are still pretty spread out. It's not like completely lined up, something like that. Okay, our final one is when the correlation coefficient is between negative 1 and negative 0.7. That would be a strong negative correlation. And the graph would look something like this. We would be going downhill, decreasing, but it's very lined up, right? It has a really strong linear relationship. So this is the second part of the video notes for 9.2. I hope this helps you, and I wish you good luck on your practice. Thank you.